let's move on to what we did last week, which is guessing game. We have many of these things that we tried last week, and we recalled today. And as we can see, there is this function we copied from Stack Overflow, meaning that this try is quite useful. It tells the compiler to try this part of the code. And this part of the code is saying that it's what kind of error popped. I mean, what kind of error is usually this one, but we know what the error is in this case because it's quite easy. Its problem was that the input in the guessing game was not an integer. So over here, we're going to change a bit. Guess a number. So over here, we change it to guess a number. It is between 0 and 9. Well, actually, with this typing, it's going to be between 9 and 10, 0 and 10. Well, and don't take my word for it that it actually does exactly as I wrote here in the comment. It could be a random number between 0 and 10, but for all you know, it might be between 1 and 11. But I think it's between 0 and 10. But it just takes a lot of troubleshooting. I mean, testing your application and checking different resources for making sure it is between 0 and 10. It should be between 0 and 10 because it starts with an index of 0 and 11 from 0, it is up to 10. So between 0 and 10, there are 11 numbers. 1 to 10 is 10 numbers plus 0. That's 11. This is, I hope it's that way, right? So what we did import, we recalled today, this library we used. Yeah, this is popping up. How do I remove this search? Okay. It wasn't useful much. So we did use this random library just so that we could use this random round range 111 comment to come up with this. I'm not expecting you guys to remember that. I'm not going to remember the full comment. I'm just going to check the materials that the codes we wrote, and I'm just going to copy it and adjust it to my needs. It doesn't have to be called guessing number. It can be called Cinderella. And this random range, it doesn't have to be 1 and 11. I mean, this is a step, I guess. And this is how many numbers. So you can change it. You can test out what does what. I do hope you will try it. It's the more you try, the better you get at it, the more you remember. So it will be faster to recall things. For example, you want a random number in Python. As long as you remember the library is called random, it will shorten your search on Google, because in the end, what we use, well, it doesn't have to be Google. I guess using some DuckDuck or Yahoo, it's going to work as well. But for programming, I find Google giving faster the good results. So Python random number. If I tap it, it will probably give us this random generate pseudo-random numbers. And over here, if we click by accident some article like this, it might actually talk about a lot of different things that are not really much useful. Okay, over here is the whole article about how to generate a random number and how to do it properly. And as we can see, it gets overcomplicated for generating just a random number. For our needs, Yeah, well, there's lots of short answers for different ways of picking a number. So over here, if we want an integer number, we use round int between a 1 and this one is random between range 1 and 11. So one wonders what's the difference between commands. So the best way is check the library we used, like I mentioned before, this page for checking the resource, and we have round range, and it does it got the full definition what it does. But there's also this one, rand int, which gives a random integer. So it might be easier to use, but it seems like the code we copied from some Stack Overflow also seems to work for us. So why not? We can also order it to print the guessing number, so we know what we're dealing with. And over here, we can use this block comment out some unfinished code and check what kind of number it gives. It gives 7, 6, 2, 2, 3, 1, 10. So far, the 10 is the biggest, but I don't see it making a 0. Maybe it will one day, maybe not. Anyway, it's up to you guys to check. All right, here, that's it. Include 0. So if you guys got time, go ahead and check. So this one we can comment out because the guessing game would be too easy if we got the result straight away. So this code we did copy from Stack Overflow. It's a good piece of code. It's very useful when you know that someone might be nasty and giving a bad input. So here, this line, what it does, it asks a user for a number and saves it to random, to variable z. Any questions so far? Okay, let us continue. And here we have this if, elif, and else conditional. So the first one is asking if the z is equal to the guessing number, the one we randomly generated. And you got it, you win. Otherwise, if it's let's change this condition. If z is smaller than the guessing number, then print we type that the user inputted a number that is too small. Too small. And otherwise, there is just one option for this else, that if it's not equal and if it's not smaller, it needs to be bigger. So we just type that is too big. Try again. So the thing is, the problem with this thing is we don't have a while loop or a for loop in it. As you can see here, before the end of the lecture yesterday, we type in 2 loops. So I will use the for loop. Before I use the for loop, I'll just launch the code so you can see. Type a number between 1 and 10. It's over here at the bottom. And I'll write a for. And it says that is too small. Try again. And this for loop that we did back then, it just printed all the numbers from 0 to 9. So for now, we can comment it out. We don't need it. We can delete it. It's fine. So I type a number. I type a 1, and it's too small. Try again. But the problem is the program already finished. It reached the end, and And that's it. We do not get to try again. That's why we need a loop, depending on how many times we want the user to guess. Time is up, let's say. So I type 3, too small, try again, time is up. So this try again should be removed. Otherwise, we should put everything in a loop. So how do we do that? So the first thing to do, we highlight this whole condition, which works for us perfectly, and put a tab. Just press a tab. This way, it will move it all by this amount of space, which is very nice. And over here, we can just copy and paste this function. How many times we want them to try? Let's say 3 times. I mean, 3 times for this small range of numbers, I think it's, well, 4 should be good enough, right? And we make sure that this randomly generated number is generated way before the loop starts, because if this line was by accident inside the loop, then it would make a new number each time, which this way it's impossible almost to win the game. Well, 1 in 10 is the chance for each time, so it's not big. So when we have this loop, it will ask us for the input. It will compare the input and give us the result. So if we run this way, with just this small for I in range 4, we can now guess 4 times. I put a 3, it's too big, try again, I try 1, too small. So obviously with a 2, I win. So it didn't need much code to the code we already had. So it just had to do this for I in range 4. But for example, you guys want to be easy on your users and you want them to guess indefinitely, which might be not the best thing. But if we want to change it to a while loop, so we can type, and here starts this stairs. Over here, we define, over here, it's the first time on line 10 that we defined Z. So obviously the loop, the while condition, while Z is not equal guessing number, do this. And there's a problem. The whole thing won't launch. It shouldn't launch because Z is not defined. Because Z is not defined, it's considered null. And that's why this whole condition, I mean, this condition is not met, so that's fine. So, I mean, it's met, I mean, the whole value of it is true. Z is not equal to this randomly generated number because Z is null, basically, so it's not defined. So this one, this whole code is trying this, but it got an issue because Z was already defined by something else. It's for some reason it's turning out an error. So before a loop, one needs to define Z is equal something. For example, this well, it's all about the logic of the game. You need to figure out what it needs to be equal, right? If I type 999, it's too big because when we follow this code, this one is made so that just Z is defined somehow. Obviously, you can define it as 0 or something, but if the guessing game is 0 and 10, well, it doesn't matter really. Because over here, when it takes the input from the user, it's already overwriting it. So I guess defining it as a 0 is also fine. So I break the code, I'll launch it again. This way we have predefined Z, so it will not pop any errors for this code. And then this condition has chance to be fulfilled because quite often if Z is not defined and you ask in a loop that the condition is something you did not define, it never ends well. So always define it just as anything, basically. Over here, it's overwritten anyway. The problem might be that if z, let's put it at 1. Yeah, there's an error. Let's try again. If we put it as 1, obviously the condition is not 1. It's too big, too small. Okay, so this works, but the thing is, we're excluding this from the results because the first time it is checking if, let's just put it like this, guessing number is 1. Then this loop is never executed even once. So one needs to take care how we define it. So anything outside the guessing number should be fine. So let's just revert the changes here with Ctrl Z. And here we can just type anything. -1 works, I think. Too small. Too small. What did I do? So, yes. So obviously there's other ways of defining this. You can check different resources, but for now, in this simple way, we've finished this game. Though this may not be that simple, just copy and paste it. As long as you know how it works, that's good enough. Quite often, when we are importing all these libraries like random, there's not many people that know exactly every single piece of the library that's built in all the commands, because they don't care about every single little thing that is at work in this library. What they care about is that this comment, random round range 111, is giving us a random number between 0, 10, or maybe 1 and 10. And that's good enough for us. As long as we know what to expect from a function, what do we input into function, and what we get back from it, that's what matters. So don't worry about not understanding many things, because there's a lot of different materials, different functions that are going to be, some people might be wanting to understand explicitly how everything works, but one shouldn't waste too much time on that. It's important that you know what the things do, so you can actually use them and start feeling comfortable about them. Obviously, you could learn if you find the need for studying and understanding how each and everything exactly works, how its inner workings are, then feel free to do it. There's lots of resources on the internet, so you can go ahead and check it out. But for now, we did this guessing game. We finished it with a while loop, and we finished it with a for loop. There were differences that with a for loop, we didn't have to define this. With we did not have to predefine Z.